Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode with Bill Riddle. I really liked his perspective and approach to his career and how he has kept just doing different things in the industry. I find that really interesting, and I think most of our guests have that in common. And I really want to encourage you to listen to other episodes because my guests have been from kind of all different facets of the tennis industry, and we have discussed different topics in each conversation as well. I like Bill's idea of being like a Swiss Army knife and just having different skills, interests, and things that you can bring to the table. This is so important and so easy for us to do as tennis players, now kind of switching to more of a rackets world or rackets industry. I mean, how easy is it for us to learn and pick up pickle or paddle and just add more to our toolbox as professionals? It's way easier for us coming from tennis than from anyone else who doesn't play tennis. And trust me, I get it. My identity is and will always be a tennis player. I am tennis through and through, but I understand that things change. And if you don't want to get left behind, you better evolve as well and adapt. I mean, I did major in biology, okay? But anyway, I get it. And I understand the resistance, especially to pickleball. I have this analogy that helps illustrate my feelings for pickle. And if you love pickleball, just bear with me, okay? So I think that pickleball is like the annoying little sister to tennis. And I would know because I was the annoying little sister growing up. The annoying little sister wants to be like the big sister. She will want to steal her toys, borrow her clothes, hang out with her friends, and be all up in her business. And everyone else seems to be in love with the annoying little sister. And the big sister just doesn't get why. But at the end of the day, they are both family, whether big sister wants it that way or not. And they have to get along for everyone's sake. And eventually, little sister will grow up and find her own way, hopefully. And big sister will learn how to embrace and love little sister back. So at one point, us tennis people will just kind of have to recognize pickleball as part of the family. And then, padel is like the foreign cool cousin who speaks 5 languages and is like way cooler than everyone else. So, we have to embrace the change. And today's guest left a thriving career in tennis to pursue his own pickleball and paddle ventures. Though to his defense, he does still play tennis as well. Today, you get to hear from Patricio Misitrano from the Sports Haus. He's an exceptional leader in the rackets world, and I have no doubt you will enjoy the conversation. We learn his story and why he decided to become an entrepreneur, his business model, and touched on many different topics regarding club management and the tennis industry overall. Now, before we get to that, I want to announce just one more time here that I am looking for tennis pros to join me this summer at the Oyster Harbors Club in the Cape. So if you would be interested in that or know of a pro who would be, please reach out to me. I also know of other directors at seasonal clubs in the Northeast who are looking for pros. So make sure to reach out to me. I want to help. If you like what you hear and want to support the show, please share the show with your peers on social media or leave us a review on your podcast platform. You can visit vidatennispodcast.com for all things Vida Tennis. We are also on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And to be honest, Instagram is where it's at, people. I am a millennial after all. Get ready to learn from one of the best out there, only here at Vida Tennis. Enjoy. Welcome to Vida Tennis, the podcast for those of us who eat, sleep, breathe tennis. Today, we welcome Patricio Misitrano, a co-founder of SkullU Paddle, Tango Sports, and the Sports Haus to the podcast. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name the English way. But Patricio has served in the rackets industry for over 20 years. He served as a director of rackets at the Greenwich Country Club and left that world to make waves in the pickleball world through his companies, which have created the largest pickleball league in the country and the first and only indoor facility in the world featuring multiple paddle, pickleball, and golf simulators. He's also involved in platform tennis, having written the education curriculum for the level 1 PPTR certification. He has certified over 150 pros and was the main force behind the launch of the Grand Prix series, which is the quote-unquote Grand Slams of paddle. He's originally from Argentina, and as you can see, he's the rackets professional. Welcome, Patricio, to Vida Tennis. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about talking tennis, talking rackets with you. And yeah, really cool what you do with your podcast. So I'm happy to be a part of it now.
Thank you. And I should have talked to you in Spanish. We could have done this in Spanish, but we won't do that to the audience. We're going to try to keep them keep them listening here.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. How did you get started in the tennis industry? Maybe just kind of walk us through how you got into tennis and then how you started getting into all these other racket sports.
So I'm going to make a very long story short. So growing up, I played a ton of sports, and one of my first sports and early on was rugby. I was really into rugby, played a ton of rugby, and my dad grew up playing rugby as well. And I broke my wrist in one of the games, and he didn't like that. And at the time, I started playing some tennis. So it was sort of like, okay, so no more rugby for you, play more tennis. It was a little safer, but I really like tennis. I like rugby as well. But it's not like he forced me to play tennis. It was like a natural thing for me to do. And one of my brothers, at the time, my only brother, also liked to play tennis. So the two of us got into playing tennis. I grew up playing tennis in Argentina, played a ton of tournaments. I would practice 5 times a week and then play after practice, tournament, all those things. I was never like a top player back in Argentina. And there were a few guys called Cañas, Puerta, Gaudio, Zabaleta in the same age group, so it was hard. But that was how I started playing. Then I moved to the US to play college tennis. I played at a small school down in Florida called Weber International University, an NAIA school. Pretty good level of tennis between NAIA and Division II tennis. And when I finished, I coached 2 years my school. And I got my MBA. And when I finished that, I moved to Connecticut. I got into teaching tennis, then eventually teaching some platform tennis. Down the road, started with pickleball and paddle. It's funny because paddle was one of my first sports. And also in Argentina in the late 80s and early 90s, I played a lot of paddle. I played interclubs, I played tournaments, I played all the time. For a long time, especially when I moved to the US, there were no courts. So I stopped playing paddle. And recently, I want to say about 2 years, 2.5 years, and I sort of picked it up again. And it's different now because the courts, when I grew up playing paddle, they were concrete. Now they're all glass. And the shape of the second panel starting from the back, it was not a rectangle. So you can still see online in some videos of old courts that are concrete, and they look a little bit different. And even the side screen, instead of being 3 meters, is all the way up, is 4 meters. So I grew up playing in those times, and I've loved for a long time. And it's very fun to be back into playing and teaching and being a part of the sport in the US.
I didn't realize that paddle, I still say padel, was existing, I guess, all the way back in the 80s. The first time I ever really saw it was in Spain in like 2012. And it was glass. It looked pretty much like what it looks like now, I think, that I'm aware of. So yeah, I didn't realize that we had it even, in South America.
In the late 80s and early 90s in Argentina exploded. Everyone would play all the time. And even now, it sort of picked up in the last decade or so again. The fun thing, and I think that is what's happening in the US as well, and that's why paddle will be not as popular as pickleball, because there are other issues like, you need a structure. So pickleball, the court and the facilities are easier to put together. And so in some cases, you don't even need much of a facility. But the players who play paddle in Argentina, most of them have zero rackets background, which is very interesting. So it's a fun thing to do. It's very social. It's easy to pick up. And there's always hanging out with friends. And that's why it's so big, at least in Argentina. I know in Spain it's a similar experience for most people. It's what do you do for fun with your friends? You go play paddle and then go out for dinner or have a drink. It's your excuse to get together with your friends.
Yeah, it's such a fun sport. I've only played it a handful of times here in Florida. I didn't play it back then in 2012. I just saw it. I was traveling with some junior tennis players, coaching them through tournaments and stuff. But I saw it and I was like, what is that? I thought it was like weird Spanish sport, but I didn't really give it too much thought. I came back and never heard about it until maybe, a couple of years ago, if that, here in the US. But I love it, actually. I think it's really fun. It's really challenging. I tried platform tennis this last fall, and I thought that was really different and weird and difficult.
it's So I grew up playing tennis, then paddle and platform tennis. I started playing in '06. And even back then it was different. It was the beginning of a lot of really high level players getting into the sport. There were some prior to that, but the style of play was, I don't want to say old school, but not too much in pace or spin. And that sort of changed at that time in '07 or '08 or '09. And that's kind of when I started playing. But in terms of how easy or how difficult it is to play, platform tennis is way more difficult. And it's from the ball that is made out of rubber, so it's not forgiving. The paddles are harder, and the court is smaller. And it's very, I think out of all the racket sports, and I play a little bit of squash, I play pickleball, I play paddle, I platform tennis, and to me, platform tennis is the one that is most difficult to play.
I would agree with that. Even though, I mean, I like padel, and I also find it really challenging. Yeah, I felt like a fish out of water on the platform tennis. So, I mean, I only played it one time, but yeah, it felt very different. I felt like I would barely touch the ball and that thing would fly. Like I had little control. So definitely a huge adjustment as a tennis player.
It's fun to see tennis players or tennis coaches coming and playing platform tennis for the first time, or paddle for the first time, or even some that play platform tennis first, then they go to play paddle, and the ball bounces completely different off the glass than what they are used to, because when the ball bounces off the screen, usually stays closer to the screen. When you play paddle, the ball shoots off that glass, and it's kind of fun to see someone come playing for the first time.
Yeah, fun for you because you can make fun of us.
And I'm talking about the tennis coaches, the high-level tennis players who are doing this kind of for the first time. It's actually not that hard to play off the glass, and it's much easier than playing off the screen. But the first time they play it, and they are really, really off in terms of the distance to the ball. Until you get used to, then it's not a big deal. It's actually playing off the glass is one of the easiest things to do for high-level players, and even for any player. And positioning, shot selection, and movement on the court is more difficult than playing the ball off the glass.
It's definitely challenging. But I also wanted to ask you about your tennis directing background, because you were director at Greenwich Country Club, and that's a huge club. That would be many tennis professionals' like dream job, right? To be a director at an amazing club like that. But you left that and you went in to do your own thing and start your own companies, and now you're an entrepreneur. What kind of pushed you to do that?
One thing led to another. And I went to another club after Greenwich Country Club, also, prestigious club. And at some point with my background, and depending where you are in your life, the priorities don't always stay the same. So for me, having my own business that I am building, and I have partners too, but I'm building something that is mine. So sometimes when you work at a club and then you leave that club, the members stay and all your students stay, and the relationships that you build on the court, some continue, but in general, you leave everything behind.
Yeah.
And then you go to a new club, and then you start again from scratch with a new club. So what we are building here at our club, and I'm one of the owners of the club, it's ours. So it's our own project. So that was one of the things. And I always say that it's easier sometimes to say these things when you're older, but not everything is about money.
Of course.
So the club, how many courts, how many assistants, how many players take lessons and do clinics. And sometimes you start thinking, okay, this is how much money I can make. And some people do it that way and it's great. And at some point I was in that type of person, not anymore. So now I'm looking at a few other things that to me are more important, more relevant. I have a family, so being close to my house and then having some flexibility is more important to me than what you make in terms of your salary or how much money you take home at the end of the day. And there are other things that I value more. So leaving one of those type of jobs, it wasn't as important as other things in my life.
I like that. And that's so true. And that is one of the reasons why I ended up creating my own company too, and even the podcast, because I feel like as an employee is very different. It's never truly yours. Mm-hmm. You can always be replaced too, right? Like people move on, things don't work out, you're out, you move on to the next thing and something, and you like spend all your time building something for someone else. And now you're growing something for yourself. And I think there's a lot of benefits to that, and it just feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, building something that is yours versus building something that is somebody else's, that was the main reason behind doing what I'm doing. And like you were mentioning, the SkullU, we do some paddles, we do equipment, we do a few things. Then I've been running platform tennis camps for a long time with Juan Araya too. He's my partner with SkullU, and he's also one of my partners in the Sports Haus. Then I've done over the last decade pretty much part-time, but because I really enjoy it, and consulting with Mark Parsons, and which is one of my partners in this project as well at the Sports Haus. So doing all these things besides working at a club, and it was the right time and it all came together. But I've always thought about down the road at some point, I'm going to be doing something that is mine or is ours instead of working for someone else. And working for someone else is not wrong. It's just that at this point in my life is what fits my priorities and my life.
Of course. But even if, like you said, even if it's not for money, to have something that you can call your own is really a special thing. I think there's nothing better.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what has been the most exciting part of creating the Sports Haus? Like you said, it's the first one of its kind with pickleball and paddle. Can you share what has been the most exciting and maybe what has been also the toughest part of this project?
Well, for me and for us, even though I've been involved in the industry for a long time, and so my partners, we've never built a club from scratch. Yeah. And someone was, and this is a while, I don't remember exactly when was the last time that a brand new club started from zero in Connecticut, and maybe 50, 60 years ago that a club was founded and then started from scratch. So I thought that when someone mentioned to me, I'm like, I don't even know. And I couldn't think of any club that started in the last 50 years. I don't know all the clubs, but it's been a long time since a club was founded. So that is kind of fun. And the other one is that we are building, especially on the paddle side, we're building something from scratch. We are creating the paddle community from ground zero. Someone was telling me, so how do you do it? It's like, we know a lot of people here, but we are creating everything from scratch in terms of how to run the programs, how the programs work, the events, the tournaments, the leagues. There's nothing. Yes, some things are similar to tennis or pickleball or platform tennis, but not all of them. There are some things that are a little bit different. And then you have to understand how they work. I'll give you an example. How long does it take for a tennis match? Usually 2 sets or a set. I don't know, depending on the level, if it's indoors, if it's outdoors. Well, paddle also, when you play every single point with a golden point, which I like that name better than sudden death point. And so when you get to 40 all, you play a golden point. Whoever wins that point gets the game. So you rarely have sets that last more than 30 minutes. So understanding those little things about the length of a match, whether it's a tournament, whether it's a friendly, whether it's an open play session or a league, and there are some things that are a little bit different from one sport to the next. But we're building everything from zero. So that has been super exciting, very cool that we are creating the community. And the challenging part, I'll say the same thing. We're starting from zero. We're starting from nothing was there before us. And the part that was very challenging too, it was from the entire build out to all the permits, to all the construction, to creating a membership that we had to come up with. So how are we going to run this business? Is it going to be membership based? Is it going to be open to the public? Where do we draw the line? So putting that together, which is evolving and is actually challenging and then also rewarding at the same time.
I'm sure there's many challenges, especially when you're the first one to do it, because there's not a model really that you can follow. Can you talk a little bit more about how that business model works for you, what you have seen work for you? Maybe for someone that is listening that is interested in doing something like you, to kind of start putting that out there. Are you more membership based, or is it like hourly court fees, a combination of both? How are you thinking about it?
So we have about 250 members. I think we might be even above that number now, but people come to play who are not members. And we want to be able to offer both, someone who is a member and someone who is not a member. With the prices that we charge, we would not be able to just have members only. We'd have to charge a lot more, and we don't want to. So by being open to the public, the non-members pay more per hour. They pay a little bit more when they take a lesson, when they come to a clinic, when they participate in an event. So there is a difference in pricing and then in how far in advance they can sign up for things. But we wanted to offer both. And we're going to continue to offer both. At some point, we're going to cap the membership. And we have 6 different membership categories. One of them we are almost about to cap, which is the club professional category. And so in order to help us grow the community, and especially on the paddle side, and to bring people in, we created a pro category. So club professional, which they pay less than the other type of memberships. So that one is almost full. And one of the reasons why we are capping the number one reason why we are capping the membership numbers is because we don't want to be too busy that if you join the club and then you join, there are so many members that you're not going to have a court to reserve.
Right.
So where that line is, we're getting closer right now, because now people are saying, oh, I wanted to book a court at this time and there was not a court. Well, there were courts maybe 30 minutes before or an hour before or after. But we don't want to be that type of club that, there are so many members that then you don't have a good experience because you can book a court.
Right.
So we are getting to that number in some categories, but we're not there yet. I think as we get closer to 300 members, we will see how that goes. But yeah, club professionals is one of the membership categories that is almost full.
That's so tricky, even in tennis, where to cap the membership, because most people want to play at the same time. So they might feel like they can't get a court ever, but it's not really. It's just because everybody wants the same time slot. So, that's a very, I find that challenging to figure out, like, where do you cap it?
Yeah. Well, we are new. We've been open for 4.5 months, pretty much. And one of the things that we are keeping an eye on are our private events, because we have a lot of people, companies, clubs, and birthday parties, just people in general. They want to bring their friends, that they are reserving the club and the courts to do their own events. And if we, every evening, we are doing one of those events, then you're a member or even a non-member, then you can come and play. So that's something that we are keeping track of, and to make sure that we don't oversell the facility, because we want to leave the facility open for members also to play. So it's a balancing act between, okay, we need to sell membership, we need to sell events, but at the same time, we can't do it too much, because then as a member, then you won't be able to play.
Yeah, of course. And what about lessons versus court time? How different is that from tennis? Because I think in tennis, it's very peculiar in the fact that to make money, you have to offer programming, unless you're charging a lot for core reservations, basically, which some places do, especially like indoors. How do you see that trend in pickleball and in paddle?
I think on the pickleball side, it works a little bit different than on the paddle side. And pickleball, we do lessons, but the model is not lesson based.
Yeah.
We do core rentals, we do some lessons, even private lessons too. And we do tournaments, we do leagues. That's how we are making, and then we do events, where we rent the courts. But that's how we are making money. And I'm talking we, like the business itself. Now, and we do have lessons here. I'm going to say how many lessons. I would say 20 plus a week. And on 4 courts, we have we have 3 pros that we do paddle, and then 1 that mainly does pickleball. So we do about 60 hours of teaching paddle lessons a week. We could be doing more, but I think it's twofold. One is because we are new and most people don't know how to play, or they want to get better at it, and they've never taken many lessons. So we're doing a lot of lessons for that reason. And 2 is because they are used to taking lessons in platform tennis and tennis. So tennis and platform tennis is very heavy on the programming side, where you do a lot of clinics, a lot of lessons. Yeah. Pickleball, not so much. But I had no idea when I was looking to hire someone to work as a paddle and pickleball pro. I had no idea how busy he was going to be. And he's as busy as he wants to be right now. But it's something that is actually very nice to see, because people are interested in taking lessons and playing. And there's so much to learn. And because it's a new sport. So it's not like, I take 2 lessons, I'm done. There's so many things. And even for me. So in a couple of weeks, we're bringing Robbie Gattiker, who is an 11-time world champion of paddle. He finished the year number 1 in the world 5 years in a row. So he's coming to teach for a week at our club. And we have a session for the pros. We are going to take lessons from him. And the pros, actually, that is out of all the categories that we have. And so we have a couple of different categories, and we did the math, how much money is spent per member based on their membership type. The club professional is the one that is spending the most money at the club, which is amazing. They come to play all the time. They come to play. They play in our tournaments.
They're hooked.
Yes, they do our in-house league. And then they go back to their club. They bring their students. We've had so many clubs where they have their winter party here. They rent all the courts and they pay for the courts. We have a liquor license, so they buy drinks from us. But then they bring their own food. We don't have a kitchen, and it works for everybody. So, but the club professional is the membership type that is spending the most money per person.
And what about demographic-wise? Because particular pickleball and paddle, I feel like I don't really see kids playing it. Maybe it's because they're newer sports, but do you offer any kind of junior programming for those?
So we do, but we don't have too many. Yeah. And at least in this area, and we open in October. So it's not an excuse, but it is what it is. So paddle and pickleball are going to be always, at least in the area where we are, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th to all the other team sports. Mm-hmm. And usually the kids have their schedule set like months and months in advance. So it's very hard to offer. So we have to be creative and flexible in how we offer these junior programs. We had a snow day. They canceled school a couple of days ago because there was a snowstorm. And then they came to play. They play golf, they play paddle, and they play pickleball. They love it. And we do birthday parties for kids. But in terms of developing like more of a structure in program, we are working on that. We're going to have a sports academy in the summer that is going to offer paddle, golf, 10 and under tennis. We're going to do some soccer. We're going to do some basketball in a reduced space. We don't have a basketball court, but we'll have basketball hoops, and we'll do a ton of different sports and arts and crafts. So we are trying to develop our junior program and to create something.
I think pickleball is now being offered at a lot of schools, at least here in Florida. I hear You can play it like in the gym. It's so easy to set up. So I think pickleball is going to be the first one to like
Yeah.
be like tennis in the sense that there's going to be a lot of kids playing it.
There's an organization called Norwalk Grassroots Tennis that they provide tennis for free to the kids from Norwalk. And they have also an education component. We offer free courts to them, and they come to play pickleball twice a week. We give them 2 courts on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They come twice a week to play in the afternoons after school. So we do have kids that play. And I know there's more interest in the local schools from kids, especially on the high school side and even some of the colleges. But it will continue to grow on the kids side.
And where do you see yourself going like the next decade or so? I mean, this is a huge project. You're going to still be doing this in 10 years. But where do you see yourself in this whole like rackets world? Is there anything else that you're still wanting to do?
Hopefully in 10 years, and hopefully I'm saying, I don't know where things are going to end up, but the plan is for me to work at the club for a few years and then not work here day to day. And we do think about opening other clubs. It's not a priority for us. We want to make sure that our club is the priority today. And we still have a ton of things to do at our location. But how do I see myself? It will see in the next 3 to 5 years. I think I'm going to be here. But it depends on how fast we grow or how slow we grow. And we want to make sure that we stabilize our business, that we have the membership, that we have our events, that we have our programs, that we have everything that works here, that we improve our communications, that we bring more corporate sponsors. We are creating a corporate membership. We're going to have very limited, only a handful of corporate members. It's a membership for companies, and that they can offer membership to their employees. So, but it's going to be very limited because that could get out of hand very easily if they all take advantage of it. But in the next, I would say 3 to 5 years, maybe I'm going to be here. And that's the plan. If things go really well before then, and I rather do other things and maybe, yes, open a second location. We are looking at locations in multiple places, but there has not been one that we are 100% behind it. And we're not going to just go anywhere to open the Sports Haus 2. And it needs to be in a place where we believe that there is huge potential and that the demographics are there, that we know the market, and there are not that many. And especially if you want to find the right type of facility, the type of building, if it's indoors.
Yeah. And I also follow you on LinkedIn, and I don't know if the listeners are on LinkedIn. I think some of them are, but I like your posts. You start up some interesting conversations about the rackets industry and searching for a director of rackets. Like I was looking at some of those, and I think that's really cool. And that's also kind of the conversations I like to have on the podcast. So I want to ask you about those things that you kind of bring up. I know that you're really passionate about those, so we can talk about that. And
sure, yeah.
Any changes that you want to see in the rackets industry, because you are truly, truly in the rackets industry.
This is a couple of weeks ago, and I don't even, I know why. I talk to a lot of like pros, and I know a lot of pros, and I'm in a lot of like in WhatsApp groups with a lot of pros, and I hear this and that. Yeah. And the one thing that everyone is frustrated, not just me, is like in all these searches, especially for directors of rackets, is that no one really knows. Well, some people do, but the majority of the applicants don't know how much the job pays. And I think that transparency is like such an easy thing to do that it actually benefits everybody. So if a club says how much they are going to pay and salary, you can even give them a range, and they know how much they pay the last person. So they know how much they have in the budget. Can they go a little higher? Probably for the right person. I doubt that any club will not go higher. Not going crazy, but there's always a little bit of a wiggle room. Then in terms of the compensation structure, all the clubs are different, but they know how much the prior director made in terms of lessons, in events, and how much the assistants got paid, how much the assistants make in terms of salary. So all those numbers actually benefit both the applicant and the club if they are out in the open. And I'll give you one example. So if you are a club that is looking for a director, and then you think that so and so is interested, is going through the process, and you're like, okay, this candidate is our number one person, so let's offer them the job. And then that candidate is expecting something way more than what the club offer. You just wasted so much time interviewing someone, your resources. You could have interviewed another person that was actually going to be interested. So everyone loses when you don't tell the applicants how much the job pays. And that's just one of the parts that I've been bringing up. But I think that is sort of like, oh, it's a secret. How much does this job pay? And, oh, you should know. Like, no, you should not know. You should tell me. And I used to think that, oh, yeah, you really should have an idea or contact someone. Like, why? Just have it out in the open.
Yeah, it's almost like as a tennis professional, you have to, and that's what's so important to network, is to have a network of fellow pros to just kind of understand how much different positions pay, because it's so different from city to city, from public to private. It's like they're all over the place. So
I'll give you an example. Okay, so I'm in Fairfield County. I live in Fairfield County, and I work all my life pretty much in Fairfield County. It's right next to Westchester County in New York. So Fairfield County is in Connecticut, and then Westchester County is in New York. So a private lesson, and more or less clubs have different rates, but in Fairfield County, a private lesson with a director, with a head pro, I'm going to say $90. You go to Westchester, 120, 130.
Yeah.
So it's a huge difference. And the clubs look exactly the same. One is in New York, one is in Connecticut. So there's a big difference. And like you were saying about the differences between one city to the next, well, this is one county to the next, and they're right next to each other. So you need to know all these things. And when you go, and they're all very different, and even the structure of how the club pays, and whether they pay you a big salary, a smaller salary, a higher percentage of lessons, what you get in terms of commissions, are the social events as part of your, does it go to the club? Does it go to you? Who is paying for the food and beverage portion? Is there a budget and you run a tournament? Is there a prize fund for, prizes and trophies, or that comes out of the entry fee? So all the clubs are so different.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be more clarity and more information out there. It's only going to benefit both the clubs and the pros.
And even worse, I've experienced it myself, where I actually saw a range, interviewed, and in the interview process found out that it wasn't even close to what they had posted. So I think that's worse. You kind of like are expecting something, and then you're like, whoa, wait a second, like this is not even close. So I think a lot of the times clubs just don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. Like, they don't, if they can get it for less, they're going to try to get it for less. And,
that's a huge mistake. And I was talking about this to someone today. Look, you get what you pay for.
True.
So if you want to pay someone less, sure, but expect less.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. I mean, you may get lucky and then you pay someone less because they are not as experienced, and maybe you think that they don't deserve to get paid as much as the other person. And I think you should get paid for what you are bringing to the table and for what your job requires you to do, more than your prior experience. Because I know some people that have a lot of experience and they're not very good. And I know some others who are much younger and less experienced, and they're way better.
Yeah. And then another aspect to this that I think is interesting is a compensation for clubs, that are now going from just offering tennis, and then the director goes from tennis director, and now you want a rackets director. Well, now that's more added responsibilities. Now you're offering more programming, you're hiring more people. Like, that should also be reflected in the compensation.
I agree. And this is just me saying this, but I think the director of rackets is the most well-rounded employee at the club. I'm including every other employee at the club. The director of golf, or the head pro in golf, they do golf. They don't do any maintenance on the golf course. The director of rackets, or chief rackets officer, whatever you want to call it, you're going to have to do court maintenance at some point, whether you like it or not. You need to know how to install the net, how to maybe pull the lines, how to fix the lines, how to remove the clay from underneath the lines, and hard courts, and how to use the squeegee to dry the courts faster. There is a system for drying and hard courts as well, and you just don't go up and down. There is a system, and whether it's pickleball and creating pickleball lines on hard to courts, which a lot of clubs still do until they get their permanent courts. And there are a lot of little things. Removing the snow from a platform tennis court, there is a system. You don't turn the heaters on and remove the snow at the same time. So
I didn't even think about that. What does that look like for a platform? You have to go out there and shovel off the snow?
Well, maybe you do. Maybe you need to use a blower in the fall to remove the leaves in between lessons. But my point was that a director of rackets, it's a well-rounded individual that has to deal with hiring staff and dealing with teams, running events, food and beverage. They need to know about how to balance a budget. They need to know about communications. They need to know about retail. They need to know about court maintenance. Oh, and they have to teach as well.
Yeah.
So no other employee at a club does as many different things as a director of rackets.
Yeah. And what about at the Sports Haus? Are you set up that way? You have a director of rackets and then a director for each sport? How does that work?
Here I do more. So my position, and that's something that is sort of evolving, and I do a little bit of marketing. So now we have a team that is helping us with our marketing. And then we have an in-house person that is doing member relations and marketing. We have Ashley, she's helping us as the director of marketing and member relations. Then I am the quote unquote chief sports officer. Well, that's the title. And it's kind of like a fun title. One of my partners, he gives me a hard time about the title because I made it up. But so what? I'm the boss, so I can make up the title. But
it's your company. You can call yourself whatever you want.
Yes, yeah.
That's amazing.
And so I handle the operations from ordering the kegs when we run out of kegs, and supplies from toilet paper to trash bags to chairs to anything, in terms of operations, the alarms, lights, and we have to replace lights or whatever. We have anything operations I deal with. And I also teach pickleball and paddle. I run some events, and I'm in charge of private events, the front desk staff. It's a mix between operations, GM, and director, and a coach. So I do a little bit so we divided all the things that I was doing before, and now there are other people that are helping me with some of the things. I was in charge of accounting before. I am not dealing with that anymore. We have someone who's doing bookkeeping and accounting, paying bills and doing the payroll. And we have someone who is in charge of running leagues and events. I am involved, but I'm not the person ultimately responsible for that. I do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, yeah. And how come you got the golf involved in there?
Well, one thing is in golf, the part of the golf industry that is growing the most is not on the courts. It's outside of the courts with golf simulators or driving ranges and this secondary golf market that you get people who never play on a golf course and you get people who play on a golf course. And especially in our area, there are a bunch of months where you cannot go and play on a golf course. And the other reason why we decided to do it is it doesn't require a lot of space and people can do it very quick. You can play 18 holes in an hour.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to go find the ball. And actually the golf simulators that we have, TrackMan golf simulators, which are amazing. And I'm sure others have the same feature that once you get the ball on the green, it finishes the hole for you.
So you're just trying to get to the green.
Yeah, so it gives you either 1 stroke, 2 strokes, or 3 strokes based on how close you got the ball to the pin.
Yeah.
But we thought that it was a great complement to the type of facility we have and the type of people who are coming to play pickleball or paddle in Fairfield County and Westchester County, and there are close to 100 country clubs, and they have golf courses. So there are a lot of golfers in this area.
For sure. And you get people from New York, Connecticut. So
the other day I gave a lesson to someone who came to play paddle from Rhode Island. Wow. They came to play paddle here. And we are the first public facility with courts in all of New England.
Wow.
And there's another one. There's a club nearby, like 15, 20 minutes from us. It's a private club. They have one paddle court. And there's at least 4 or 5 that are also private clubs, country clubs, that are putting 1 or 2 courts this coming year or the following. So it's going to continue to grow. But as far as being open to the public, the closest one to us is going to be in Brantford, Connecticut, like about an hour north of us. And they're starting to build now, I think. So maybe in the fall they will be ready. But there's really nothing between us and Brooklyn.
And do you think that that's a good thing? Or do you think, I mean, I would think maybe things will get even better because when you start having more people, because now you can play other clubs and have interaction, but at the same time, it's more competition. So what are your thoughts on that?
At the end of the day, look, competition is someone opens down the street from us. At the end of the day, they're going to come to our place or not based on the service that we provide.
Yeah.
So if especially on both paddle and pickleball, if there is a club that offers much better product than us and price, you can decide how much you can afford or how much you want to pay. But it comes down to value. There are other places where you can play pickleball that are a little bit less than our club, but people are choosing to come to our place and they tell us because they like the experience. They like the standalone courts, 4-foot fences, 25-foot ceilings, amazing lights, and plenty of space around the court. Our pickleball courts, we have 2 that are 30 by 60 and 2 that are 35 by 65. Plenty of space to hit around the post, to go back behind the baseline. And there are other clubs where you have columns, you have 12-foot ceilings, 14-foot ceilings, and no fences. So there are balls coming onto your court, your balls going to the other court. So that at the end of the day is going to be, even if someone opens next to us, and they're going to decide based on the experience. And if they think that it makes sense for them to pay X, if they see value in coming to the Sports Haus or not. So we're not worried. And if someone opens next door, then it's going to help us to run other business, other tournaments, to do in more leagues, and to help grow the sport.
I think competition is a good thing. I think competition is healthy. So yeah, I agree with you. All right. And then what about the Grand Slam and the double bagel moment of your tennis or rackets career?
I'll say that in rackets, it was, and the Grand Slam, it was pretty cool. 2 years ago, I won a gold ball in tennis.
Yeah, that's cool.
And 40 and over men's doubles on hard through on clay down in Florida. It was an ITF 1000. So it was a pretty cool win in my first, and I think I'm going to retire playing USTA tournaments. That was my first USTA tournament. So I won a gold.
You still play tennis then?
Yeah, I love playing tennis. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like playing doubles more than singles now. Yeah. And so that was, before that, actually, for me, it was because I was never like a top player. There were always players that were better than me. And so that was one that was, before that, I was All-American in college in NAIA, which for me was pretty cool too. But I would say the gold ball, that was nice. So it's going to be hard to top an ITF 1000, which is like a Grand Slam for senior tennis.
Yeah.
And there were players that were ranked top 10 in the world that came to play in that tournament.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes things align and everything goes well. And well, that was that tournament. Yeah. And then the double bagel, I don't look at it like at losing. Bad thing. I want to say that since I started working, I had a coach that helped me with my running. So I did a lot of long distance running for a number of years, maybe 5-6 years. And she really helped me with my mental training, that I apply that to other sports, to tennis, to platform tennis, and paddle. So losing, I don't see that as a negative for me. But I don't know if I have a double bagel like moment. I did get a double bagel once. I remember when I was 11 years old, only one double bagel by this guy who he was a pretty good double bagel he gave me. And then he never played. I never seen him. It's not like he was like one of the best players. And then you see him in tournaments. No, he was this guy who was a nobody who beat me 0-0 in a tennis tournament, and then he disappeared.
Yeah. That's hilarious. And you still remember that. So that's
yeah. I remember the club, I remember the match. I don't remember his name, but I remember what he looked like.
The reason that I like to ask that question is because a lot of times the hardest times in our careers is where we learn from the most, and also what propels us to our next big, growth spur, put it that way. So I think that sometimes they're hard to remember, or sometimes they're hard to share. But I really do believe that when you're having a low moment, you better be sure that something big is coming.
Yeah. So. And I've had those moments, and in the moment, it's very hard sometimes to see, oh, it's going to get better. And once you're out of that place, then if somebody else is going through a tough time, then you can tell them, oh, just give it time, focus on what you want to do, on whatever your objectives, your goals, or on things that are important to you, and things will get better. Now, when you are there, it's hard to see it.
Of course.
And I did have those moments. And I remember one of them, it was right after I finished college. Another one, it was later. And it's always good to have someone that you can talk to, at least one person. And I was lucky enough that I did always have someone that I can talk to. But it's always a learning process. There's ups and downs. And if you don't expect to have one of those moments, then it's not realistic. And something that I learned from my running, that maybe it applies and maybe someone can use it as in their life. But my coach used to tell me, look, you're running a marathon. It's not a matter of, is it going to hurt when you get to 20 miles or 21 miles? Is when it's going to hurt, because it will hurt.
Yeah.
So when that moment arrives, you have to be ready, because you will get there. Doesn't matter how fast you run or how slow you run, you will get to that point where everything hurts, and mentally you're going to be like, oh, I cannot do this. This is too hard, and my knee hurts, my back hurts, or whatever it might be. So what are you going to do then?
Yeah.
So she would always tell me, embrace it, say, okay, I'm ready, smile, and then you're ready because we are talking about it. So when the time comes, then keep doing what you know how to do. So those low moments, they happen to everybody. So it's how do you deal with them, and what do you do to come ahead? Yeah. So it was funny because I used that metaphor in tennis when my partner is complaining about how I play, or when things don't go your way, and they will happen.
Yeah, just keep going, and things always turn out for the best. So yeah. Well, Patricio, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing all the knowledge and expertise, and best of luck with Sports Haus. That is so cool. I'm going to have to visit when I'm up there soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And definitely, if you're in the area, definitely stop by. We have a ton of people to play with, and maybe Max visits one of these days, and then we can play with them too.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Vida Tennis. I invite you to visit our website at vidatennispodcast.com. We're on social media as Vida Tennis Podcast as well, and you can email me directly at vidatennispodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to share the podcast with your peers. We're all here to hear each other out and lift each other up. See you next week for a fun conversation with Andy Durham from Racquet Stats.